Don't you just love it when you're about to do something and you're used to doing something and you know exactly what you're going to do and everything's working very well and you operate your computer and then there's a little sort of thing that comes up and says, oh, this program wants to update. And you go, right, okay. Oh, it's only going to nag me if I don't update it, so I'll just quickly update it and that'll be fine. Don't you just love that? And it's, relatively quick and you update it and then you carry on with your life. But of course, sometimes you get these little things. It says, oh, I want to update this. Is that okay? Yeah, I'm used to being updated. Of course, we love to have the latest software. We're always told it's advisable to have it for security purposes, to have the latest so that there is less of the security risks and that various nasty people can get in because it's been hanging around and everybody knows all the flaws and all the sort of ins and outs of it. So you update it and then you think, right, okay, I'm a bit pushed for time, but never mind, I'll do that, then get on with the task in hand. Yes. Then you find that the buggering program that you was trying to use doesn't bloody work at all. And that's just what's happened with me. I'm a bit late on the recording of this because the filming program that I use on this has suddenly decided, oh, by the way, we've updated it. Everything's changed. Things have moved around. But not only that, we've rerouted this, we've rerouted that, so the audio and the picture doesn't go in the right place. And your graphic card drivers no longer work. And also another bit of kit that's plugged into this, it no longer works. You're going to have to sort that all out. And you think, oh, why couldn't you have said, this is a major update. It may make a few changes and you may need an hour just to change everything so that you can work. Rather than just being, oh, by the way, do you want to update this program? Won't take a minute. And you go, yeah. And then suddenly, an hour later, you're still going, why the hell does this not bloody well work? What have I done? And also, why is it these updates that make a big change on your computer programs that you suddenly no longer can use? Can you not go, I'll fix this another day, just revert to the previous version? That would be very helpful. If you could just revert to a previous working version. I just want to go back to where I was so I can do the job I want to do, and then I can schedule an hour or so to sort of update all of this. Maybe that's a lesson that one learns as you go through. So have you ever done that? That's going to be the subject of the day. I was going to talk about something completely different, but it's really pissed me off now that I've been faffing about for 45 minutes going, oh, what the hell? Why isn't this working? And then working out where to reroute what audio through which in the studio. And of course, if you've got a fairly comprehensive studio like what I have here that's taken a long time to put together, and then it works, and you never have to go back and refine it because it works, and then you think, hang on a minute, that channel goes through here, it's rerouted through there, it goes through there, it comes out here and pops it, and then that's how it works. And you've sort of got to relearn how you've jigged up your studio, unless of course you're jigging up studios all the time, in which of course that knowledge is fresh on the top of your bonce. But in my case, no, I very rarely touch any of the stuff, and when you get a little update, mostly it just updates because it's a little, bug fixing. Oh yes, in this one we're fixing a bug. But it didn't sort of say in very big letters, caution. If you update to this version, you need to have this codec and this and this. So I'm curious, not just on computers, but on anything where you've had a revised version. Maybe you've updated a piece of equipment, like a washing machine, and you've gone, brilliant, there's the new washing machine, plugged it all in, shoved my washing in, press the button. No, doesn't quite work. What now? Hang on a minute. Why is that? Oh, there's a whole new, why are things made complicated in this world? I like simple things myself, which is why I've made my kitchen much more like an old-fashioned kitchen. I prefer to wash up rather than use a dishwasher. I do have a washing machine. It's very true because that would be a very time-consuming thing, washing things by hand. But I don't bother with the toaster anymore. Well, I don't eat bread, to be honest with you, so I don't bother with the toaster. And the only complicated thing that I have really is the Essie, and it's not really complicated because you're just doing something primeval, which is a wood-burning stove, and that's lighting a fire and letting the stove heat up. I haven't got to worry about all the different gas settings and Regulo 6 and understand all of that. It's like you either shove another log on and it'll get hotter, or you don't. It's one or two of those things. And once it's set up, you don't have to worry about it. I don't want to have all this complicated, do this to do that. I find phones complicated enough. Now, it may be that I'm perhaps going a bit senile. Perhaps I'm a bit backward. Perhaps I'm unable to cope with this modern world. Maybe it's an age thing. Probably is. Probably getting a bit like my dad, who never quite understood how to program the VHS so that he could make sure that he recorded the programs from the 4 terrestrial channels that he wanted. He never had Sky or Netflix or any of these sort of things. He didn't even get onto the internet because it all seemed a little bit too complex and complicated. Now, is that a thing? Is that a thing, do you think? Should we be continually updating ourselves so that we're familiar with the latest things, so that it sort of exercises the brain, so that we try and avoid things like dementia, which of course he did get, which is very regretful, I have to say. Or should we stick with the much more simplistic, well, look, it works. Why do we need to keep improving things? If something ain't broke, why do we have to do it? Yes, it might give you a few minutes off your life, but does it open up other things? So, I mean, mobile phones, they're great things, but they are such a waste of time. I find myself scrolling through endless YouTube videos and so, just because I can, I do. And now I'm sort of going, do you know what? If I didn't have the mobile phone, or the smartphone as they're now called, maybe I would utilize that time reading more rather than wasting my time on bits and bobs. I've got myself off social media for exactly those same reasons. That most of the time I post only what I need to post on Facebook, which is the Bald Explorer video, but I don't look at the I don't even remember what you call it, the main screen that has everybody else's posts, because mostly it's all tittle-tattle and I'm not really interested. I'm not sort of that nosy. I don't want to see somebody's school kids dressed up in their outfit, or somebody's first dinner, or their baby, pictures of their baby, or congratulations on getting married and all this kind of stuff from people who claim to be friends that I actually have no idea who the hell they are. And then there's pictures of their friends or pictures of them drunk down the pub. And I just think, I'm not interested. I don't want all this rubbish. So I managed to get myself off most of the social media, things like Twitter and bits and bobs. So, but when you are on one of these things and you do understand it, and then you suddenly get a technical update and it changes everything, it throws you, doesn't it? Does that happen to you? It must do. It must happen to everybody. And how do you cope with it? If you just are so used to operating something in one way, are you willing? I know we get forced to. I was forced to, as I say, spend half an hour, 45 minutes going, well, I can't remember how this works now. Are you willing, or do you just go, I throw my hands up in the air and I've got to get somebody else in to have a look at it? It's like with the car, I go and get my car serviced regularly. I just don't want it to break. I don't have a car, actually. I have a van. But I don't want it to break down. So I pay for a service every year. We've got to have an MOT. And then if there's an alert and they say, your brakes are a little bit this, or your big end is a bit fluttery, then I say, well, you better go and fix that, because what I don't want to end up doing is breaking down. Although, of course, I have Automobile Association coverage, the AA, not the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a different one. And I think there's another AA, a friend of mine was telling me about it, an appropriate adult service, which is also called the AA, which is if a young person is in problem and they're going to be interviewed by the police for whatever reason, and their mother or father can't be there, and they need an adult, you go to an appropriate adult, which I think is a volunteer service, which sounds very laudable and everything, and somebody will then sit in and make sure that this young person is not being taken advantage of, and that they're legally there to sort of have an overall monitoring purpose. I don't know that they can actually advise or make decisions, but they can say things like, well, you don't need to answer that, as simple as that, rather than saying this is what you must say, if you see what I mean. But anyway, that's a completely different thing. Updates. Do you end up with updates? And what other sort of updates do you do? Or is it, in your life, in jobs and things, where you suddenly get somebody say, I mean, in the corporate world where I was working, making videos, I was let me start that again. I never worked in the corporate world as an employee. I was self-employed. So I could decide who the clients were, and I would work for a corporation and say, okay, I'll make you a corporate video for you. But what used to narc me is you do everything, and then there would be the changes, and then you do the changes, and then there would be more changes, and then you'd be pulling your head out. And you're going, for goodness sake, I've done all this. And then one of the other things I would do is after a year, I would keep all the footage and everything for a year. But after a year, if it's not been referred to ever again, I would just take it off the system, which basically means I would delete it. I wouldn't bother to store it because most of it was out of date. And then every now and again, the client would come back 2 or 3 years later and say, oh, that video you made for us and such, I need a copy because we've lost the one you sent us. And I haven't got a copy anymore because I got rid of it. And I say to them, I'm ever so sorry, but unless you actually are paying me to archive it, I haven't got it. And then they get a bit arsey with you, and they go, but we pay. And they say, well, you didn't pay me to archive it. You paid me to do the job. I've said it by the goodness of my own heart. And you've got to be very careful because you still want to get work from these people. You say, well, from the goodness of my heart, I'm afraid I can no longer do it. But I've had situations where I was using an edit program. And, of course, Windows decided on the PC, well, you've got to upgrade to this Windows program, so you upgrade to that Windows program. And then the edit program wouldn't be compatible with the Windows program I was using. And then I had all this corporate video work that I had been using that maybe they would want stuff from within that year period, but because I'd upgraded my system, it wasn't backward compatible and wouldn't play. So then you had the video software that needed to be upgraded as well because the operating system had decided, well, I'm not going to talk to that program anymore. And you go, but everything was working absolutely fine. I've upgraded this because everybody said you need to do that. So I've done that, paid for that. Yeah, thanks very much. And then suddenly these programs don't work on that platform anymore. So now I've got to pay for all of those to be upgraded. And it's like, for goodness sake, if things are working, why have we got to continually upgrade? So I want to know from you, have you had those instances where you've upgraded and it's gone wrong? Whether it happens to be in the real world and you've upgraded, I don't know, to a new car that suddenly you find, I've upgraded to this model and suddenly this car now, it just feels wrong. It just doesn't, I don't like it. I don't like this upgrade. But you like the previous one, but they say, oh, but you can't have the previous one because we no longer will be able to service that anymore. Won't be able to look after you. You've got to move to this. Do you ever feel that you're being pushed into upgrades that are just not suitable for your way of life and that you just prefer what you have? I like this. I like the touch and the feel and I like the look of this. And then you get the upgrade and you go, it's just changed. So same with this software that I use to record this on. It's now all the icons are bigger. They're slightly not in different places, but they just look more clunky and not as good as it was before, which is very irritating. And then you've got to spend time getting used to it. Programs, of course, do that all the time, don't they? And I find that one of the culprits of this was Facebook, continually fiddling and tinkering with it so that you would go, I know what to do. I post a thing like this. I go onto my page. I post this and I'm done. And then suddenly, no, you can't do that anymore. Messenger has been moved over here and this has been moved over there. And it's like, oh my God, I've got to relearn everything. Do you ever get that? Do you get the same frustration? Or is it just me? It could just be me being absolutely mind-numbingly thick. And I probably am. And I probably can't cope in this world of continual changing lifestyle. But everything changes. It's like, it's not just one thing over here and you go, oh, I can cope with that. I just get on with it. The great thing about books, and I love reading books, is once you've got the book, you've got a book, it's in a hardcover or a soft cover, and it's been printed. The words don't change. They don't move about. Suddenly that chapter hasn't gone and moved over here, or the pictures haven't suddenly migrated to different pages, or, oh, hang on a minute, the text has changed. It's suddenly got bigger or smaller or whatever. The book is a finite thing and it doesn't move. And that's what I like about objects which do not need to be upgraded. It is what it is. You can pick the same book up 20 years hence and it will be identical. But with this modern world of digital this and digital that, constantly things are being upgraded and changed and moved about and all the rest of it. Do you find that frustrating, irritating, or do you embrace it? And do you just think, oh no, I like it. It's a nice new shiny look. I love the flashing lights. And look, they've changed the shape of that. They've put a curve on here. Does any of that matter? Does the aesthetic matter to you? Be interested to know. Do let me know. I need to get out of the funk, of the frustration of upgrading technology. Be interested in your stories. Thank you very much for that. Right, let's have a look now at some of the comments that you've had on recent productions. We're talking about here, for example, how does the weather affect you? Because, yeah, do you know, yesterday was supposed to be a wet and horrible and miserable day, and the Met Office on the website said, oh, it's going to be horrible. Same as today. I look out the window. Lovely sunshine here. What these are, it's very irritating when the weather people continually get it wrong, and then on the next hand they say, "Oh, but yes, there's climate change and we're all going to die." And you think, well, wait a minute, you can't even get the weather right for the next day. How are you possibly going to forecast what might happen in 10, 20, or 30 years in such a cataclysmic way? You can't. You really can't. You've no idea. It's sort of, you're just taking a punt in the air and going, well, I think the wind might go that way at the end of the day. Nature is nature. Anyway, let's have a look and see what people have been saying about the weather. And Scott FW says there just after the 10.2 point man who thinks he's ever so clever. If Ever So Clever was an album title, what would the music... I don't know what you're on about, Scott. That's got nothing to do with the weather. Willow Finn VT says, I don't mind the rain. It's been drought here in Vermont, but if it's heavily overcast, it really saps my energy. Yeah, sometimes some of that sort of, meh weather. The weather, there's not one thing or another. It's just sort of bleh, and it's just uniform. If you have a bit of dark cloud, light cloud, a tiny patch of blue, there's a bit of hope that the blue might get bigger. Or if the dark cloud is coming, it's going to be, I'm going to hide in the corner and wait for the rain. I might embrace it or whatever. But if it's just uniform, it's kind of like just Drabsville, isn't it? It sort of gets you down. Irvin70 says, good evening, Richard. Weather has a big effect on me. I love the sun. Most of my friends hate the heat, but I love it. I have the best suntan ever this year. Good for you. I'm not keen on the colder weather, but walk and cycle in the snow. Yes, that keeps you warm, doesn't it, by keeping moving. And that's always a good thing. But the best feelings about being alive is standing by the sea in a storm with the spray hitting you, or going to a place at night where there is no light pollution and looking up into the sky and watching the stars. Yes, I think I have to agree with you there. The dramatic seas, as long as you're not on a boat that's being swallowed up by these great big swelling waves and feeling the peaks and troughs of the ocean as it lifts you and drops you down and potentially throws you to the sharks and to the on the crest of a wave to goodness knows where, or perhaps pulls you underneath so that you can no longer breathe and there's no oxygen filling up your life-giving lungs. We don't want that. But it's that sort of thing where you're on the edge of danger, but you're not really in it. That sense that, oh yes, I'm alive. Shirley says, I love the rain. I love it when it thunders. Another special time is a cold, icy morning with a clear blue sky. Pouring of rain at this moment. Another fab chinwag. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to hear that. And Sisyphus, which I don't know if that's the correct name. It's sort of like that. Sisyphus says, I like autumn the most. Spring is good, but living in Oklahoma, the tornadoes and the severe thunderstorms are not much fun. No, you see, we over here very really in the UK have very little concept of what a tornado would really be like, or indeed a very, very heavy thunderstorm. We get very mild weather. We wax lyrical about the hurricane, so-called. And I don't think it was a major hurricane, but it was quite severe here in 1987. Those of us who were around in 1987 will go, oh, yes, I remember the hurricane of 1987, as if it was only last week. But if you're around in there, you do remember how Chantonbury Ring, with the ring of beech trees up there on the hill fort on Chantonbury Hill in West Sussex, just north of Worthing, how many of those beech trees collapsed, in fact most of them, and the damage of many trees had been uprooted and fallen to the ground. And if you were around, remember the devastation as if it was only last week. Ingram Cars says, I appreciate all weathers. Walking my dog over the South Downs every day, I enjoy watching and feeling the changing seasons. It's absolutely wonderful. I also enjoy more extreme weather. The Outer Hebrides is perfect for me for that. Often the rugged feeling of being right on the edge of nature can be found there. Yes, and you've mentioned going to the Outer Hebrides. It's somewhere I've never been. I'd love to go and sample that for myself and feel, on the edge of... Oh. And I guess in many ways that's, sort of that thing about space travel that Neil Armstrong standing on the moon, even though he's protected by his suit, trying to sort of get a sense of what it's like for a different type of atmosphere or going in space or something completely different that is out of our normal everyday experience. And so standing, by the sea as it's, that potential that you could get blown over and sucked into it, although it's unlikely, I guess, makes you feel like you're somewhere on that thing. I didn't word that very well, I know. H. Carlson says the weather does impact me on a daily basis. If it's raining, I feel more alive. If it's snowing, I feel very hopeful. Now that it's hot, all I want to do is to get out on the lake. But if I have to work that day, I'll keep the curtains drawn. Oh, golly, really? Very glad the weather does change and not stay the same all the time where I live. Appreciate the daily chinwags. Richard, thank you. Well, I'm very pleased that you do. That's very kind. If only I could get a few more people to watch them, then it would be absolutely fantastic. But we're working on it. But yes, I often sit up in this room over there, which I can't show you at the moment because of the updated software. I don't think I can access my my webcam. I don't think I can. Can I do it here? I can't even find it. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. If I do that. Oh, yes, there we go. At least I can do that. Okay, so over there, that is my edit suite where I do my editing for the Bald Explorer stuff. And now I've got to try and get back to the main camera without... there we go. Oh, it's all right. It's nice when it works, the system. So I do that over there. Now, I've got curtains drawn in the studio here. So on a lovely hot day... I need it to be dark so I can see the screen and assess the picture, you see. That's why, a lot of edit suites don't have windows or have black curtains over the windows. But so if it's a sunny day and I'm working on an edit because I need to get it out, I find it so difficult because I'm a sun person. If the sun is shining, I've got to be outside. I've got to be out there and enjoy it, even if it's just sitting on my step at the front of the house reading a book in the sunshine. I find it difficult to go and edit when it's a beautiful sunny day and I feel I'm missing something important. But maybe you're a bit different. Finally, then, Steam Searcher says, us again. Hello to you, David and Lily. He says, yes, having a hobby that involves sitting behind a model steam train outside, it's very dependent on the weather. Well, I imagine it would be. A perfect plan emerged on that Saturday. We would go for a walk and see Richard's feet on a swap of boots. No idea what you're talking about there. And the Sunday visit over the Andover Models engineers on the way back via an overnight in the car. Due to the very dry conditions, it was postponed. What? Because it was too hot, I suppose. It runs in Woodland, so it helped. So we helped out at the Reading track instead. Oh, okay. So yes. So of course, if you're doing something that does depend on good weather, and filming, in my sense, mostly it depends on reasonable weather, but wind and rain can often make it very difficult, and so weather is a big thing for when you are working, but it also affects your mood, as we've just seen. Anyway, thank you very much for all of those comments. And so I want to know, upgrading things, technical things, when they change things, does it get on your you-know-whats? Does it make you feel frustrated? Or do you just embrace it and go, well, no, I'm very calm. I just got to upgrade. I'll sort this out. Oh, I see, got to update this. I've got to update that now. Move this, move that, change this. Oh, I've got to get used to this. No, it's no problem. I don't really have a problem with it if I've got the time, but mostly these things, they ping up and say, do you want to upgrade? Yes, all right. And I do it, and then, the frustration starts to get hold of you. Are you like that? I'd love to know. Send me a comment on the video down below. Don't forget to subscribe and all of that. If you haven't, tell a friend about the ChinWag. It'd be very nice. And you can tweet this out to all your mates, which will be also very good, so we can get the audience a bit bigger and different people putting more comments. But until next time, thanks for watching. Let's hope there's no more upgrades in the meantime. Till then, bye-bye.